Baba booey, baba booey, baba booey. Howard Stern comes again.
About to leave, already packing. Come with me, I'm not really asking. We'll get away to a place where we don't know.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm really excited about this video because we get to talk about one of my favorite subjects, Howard Stern. Howard Stern has released a new book called Howard Stern Comes Again. And there's many things you can say about Howard Stern, but one thing that we might all agree on is that Howard Stern is one of the best interviewers of all time. And he wrote a book on that subject, his interviewing process, what he goes through, the questions that he asks, how he prepares for these interviews, why some of these were his best interviews, and what he loved about them, what he hated about interviewing. I am so excited to read this book because he is the best interviewer of all time. And we're going to talk more about that in a minute. But while I was waiting for the release of this book, I was reflecting on this idea that Howard Stern has been so influential in my life as to who I've become as a person. And it made me realize that Howard Stern is the voice that's inside my head. His voice in my head is one of the reasons why I've been able to accomplish what I've been able to accomplish. I've had an attitude the way I've had an attitude, how I view the world, all those things. For the past 35 years, this is the man whose voice has been inside my head. And that made me think. We all have a voice inside our head. So that's what I want to explore in this video. Who is the voice inside your head? What is that voice saying to you? How is that voice that you might not even be conscious of or might not even think about much, how is that voice driving the decisions that you make, the actions that you take, the career choices that you make? That's what I want to explore, but we're not going to do it inside here. It is an absolutely beautiful day in Phoenix. Okay, Google, what's the temperature outside?
The current temperature in Phoenix is 73.
John Legend says that the temperature in Phoenix is 73 degrees. You know what? It's the middle. It's May 17th. So I'm excited to go outside and explore the neighborhood a little bit. All right, let's go. But first we need some coffee, and everyone on YouTube has their special coffee and their special way of making coffee. So I figure I'd show you my special coffee and my special way that I make coffee. What? How do you make your coffee? I can't even wait until it finishes. So we were a freshman in high school when we discovered this new show on television called Late Night with David Letterman. All of us started watching it at the same time. And we were blown away by this guy. This guy came out and did things completely differently. First, he came out in his suit and sneakers. I know that sounds crazy to think that that was revolutionary, but it was revolutionary back then. No one did that. As a matter of fact, every time I wear my suit with sneakers, I think about David Letterman. He was funny, he was sarcastic, he was witty, he was confident. Even if he wasn't in real life, that's how he came across. He came out with that I don't care what you think attitude. He was edgy and unpredictable. He was an amazing interviewer. I remember guests being completely nervous to talk to Letterman because they didn't know what questions were coming. You could just see the nervousness. And he got into fights with a bunch of his guests. He also didn't take himself too seriously. He didn't take show business too seriously. He came out with stupid human tricks, stupid pet tricks. He threw things off the roof. I thought he was the most rebellious person I'd ever seen on television. That was until 1994 when his guest on his show was a local DJ by the name of Howard Stern. This guy Howard Stern came on and he made David Letterman seem like a normal person. This guy was insane. He was loud, he was obnoxious, he was in your face, he was blunt, he was honest. He just didn't care. He was New York. After his appearance, I had to figure out who this guy was. So I found him on the AM dial. He was on WNBC in the afternoons. I used my Sony Walkman with the AM FM dial. I didn't know there was anything on the AM dial. I thought it was just Yankee games and 10-10 news or 10-10 wins. You give us 22 minutes, we'll give you the world. That's all I thought AM was. There's this guy, Howard Stern, on AM radio, and I started listening. And this man was insane. He had characters, he had voices, he was just all over the place. I started listening and I haven't stopped. Howard Stern has been in my life for the better part of 35 years. I listen religiously. I listened to every show. I know everyone on that show. I know the history of the show. I know who the Whack Pack is. I know everything about this show. If you see me walking through the airport, there's an 85% chance that I'm listening to the Stern Show or to the interviews or to the specials. If you see me laughing while I'm walking through the airport, listening to my headphones, I'm listening to Shuli do Tan Mom. There's something about the way Shuli does Tan Mom that I just lose my mind. I can't help it. I just laugh out loud to myself as I'm walking through the airport. So when you tell people that you are a fan of Howard Stern, and this has been happening for 35 years, you get a little bit of a funny look. You get a look of disgust. You get a look of like, ew, you really? You listen to Howard Stern? You get that kind of reaction. Because when you think about Howard Stern, most people have an image of the fart jokes, the penis jokes, the lesbians in the studio, the roughness, the being mean. They get that image. They get the Howard Stern from the 80s and 90s that people were told about, the one that the FCC went after. That's the Howard Stern most people think of. They don't know who Howard Stern is. Now, while all those things were true, that's not what I got from Howard Stern. What I got from Howard Stern was that this was a man who was a perfectionist. This was a man who wanted to be the best at what he did. He wanted to be top notch. He wanted to be number one. He was not going to change for the world. He was going to change the world the way he saw fit. He was going to be who he was, and he didn't care who it bothered. He accepted people for who they are. If you look at the Whack Pack, those are people that most of us just ignore in society. We don't talk about these people. We don't even look at them. We don't even acknowledge their existence. Howard Stern turned these people into stars. Most of the humor that you got from him was humor about how ridiculous that was. He's turned into one of the most brilliant interviewers of our time. He's completely mastered what an interview should be. I can't tell you how many times I heard someone he's interviewing say, "Oh my God, how did you know that?" I can't wait to read the book and find out how he does that research. No matter who it is, you feel like you are eavesdropping in on a conversation between two friends who are being honest and genuine with each other. He is able to elicit honesty and bluntness from all his guests. How many guests have said, "I can't believe what I'm about to say," or "I can't believe I just told you that"? He's actually playing jazz when he's interviewing. He's got his questions, his areas, his themes that he wants to go into, but he's literally playing jazz. He does something crazy. He listens to what the answer is, and then he plays off that answer. The other thing that he does is that he helps the interviewee along with the answer. If he sees that the interviewee is struggling with an answer, he helps. He'll say something like, "I bet in your head you're like, who the hell does this guy think he is?" He'll set that up for the interviewee to jump onto, to grab onto, and take it the rest of the way. He's masterful at playing jazz when it comes to interviews. And the funny thing is, I didn't think about it until I started putting this video together that a policy of mine is I don't want to know what your questions are before a podcast, before an interview. Don't try to send me the questions. I don't want the questions. I don't want to know what the questions are. I want to be able to give you the answer from my head as we are discussing it. And I guess that came from the years of being conditioned by Howard Stern. Why he was able to be the voice in my head is because I didn't have a male voice in my head. I didn't have a male role model. I didn't grow up with a father. I didn't grow up with any father figures. My mother, she was 22 and she had me. She worked all week. She wasn't a very good voice in my head. And because I didn't have those voices, they ended up being Howard Stern in the morning, David Letterman at night. Two people who are authentic, two people who are blunt, two people who know exactly what they want, know exactly how they have to get it, know exactly how to be accountable, know exactly how to be the best at what they do, and don't shy away from the things that they believe, even if they're controversial. Those are the voices in my head. I was blessed that Howard Stern was the voice in my head. Who is the voice in your head? You have a voice in your head. Who is that voice? Where did it come from? It's an important question to figure out. That's our friend's house, Leticia and Joseph. They have no idea that I'm taping in front of their house. As a matter of fact, they're not gonna know unless they watch the video, and then they're gonna say, "What the hell is Jamie doing in front of our house?" Hi. Anyway, when did you become aware of the voice in your head? When did you realize that all of a sudden there was this commentator inside your head, not only narrating your life, but literally controlling the things that you do? That voice in your head was created by a number of factors. And one of the most influential factors is, who did you listen to when you were growing up? Who was the voice when you were a kid, when you were in high school? What are the things that they encouraged you or discouraged you from doing? That voice right now is telling you what you should do right now, today. It's telling you what you should do in the future. That voice in your head might be telling you, you're not good enough. You're not smart enough. You wanna quit your job and follow your passions? You wanna leave the accounting firm and go work in another country and help people in their lives? That voice in your head says, no, that's too risky. You're not smart enough to do that. You can't do that. That voice in your head tells you that good things don't last. That voice in your head tells you to keep your problems to yourself. That voice in your head tells you to keep a low profile and work hard. You might not realize this or not, but that voice in your head is controlling you. So here's the thing about the voice in your head. You think you are the voice in your head. You think that voice in your head is actually you. You also think that you're responsible for that voice. You think you've made that voice and that voice is a reflection of who you are as a person. And finally, you let that voice run your life. It's your voice, you made it up, you control it, it comes from you, it's who you are, therefore it runs your life. And that's not true. You are not that voice. Your identity is not the voice. The voice comes from environmental factors like we just talked about. Therefore, it is not you, which gives you the ability to change the narrative for that voice. So there are 3 things you can do. Number 1, and you're doing it now, be conscious of that voice in your head. Understand that it's there. Accept that it's there and be conscious of what it's saying, and then recognize that it is not you. It is not your identity. That is just a voice made up of environmental factors, including the voices from your past. Step 2, you have to learn how to meditate. You have to learn how to control your mind. And a lot of my videos are about this idea of mindset and this consciousness of understanding what's happening in the moment. And this is a special time for that. You have to learn how to meditate. You don't have to do the hardcore meditation. For me, it's just a couple of minutes in the morning, just of silence, of quietness, of like this understanding that I'm gonna control my mind today for just a couple of minutes every day, so you can learn how to quiet that voice, so you can shut that voice down. And the third thing, and this is gonna be tied to another video that I am editing right now, which is this idea of mindset. Listen to that voice in your head and then ask yourself, how does it relate to who you are, your guiding principles? If you want to be a risk taker and that voice in your head saying, don't take any risks, shut that voice down. You are in control. So those are the things that you can do to have more control over that voice in your head so that you can get to your passions, the things that drive you. Not your voice, but you. Howard Stern has had a bad rap. He's never been accused of anything. He's never had any charges against him. He's never been arrested. He's never done anything. No one has ever said a bad word about him, and he's the most despised person in media. What does that say? I would love to be able to be in the studio with Howard and Robin and Fred and Baba Booey and the team, to be there, to watch what they do, to watch them work just for an hour during Robin's News. That would be the ultimate. This man has been in my head for 35 years, and I want to thank him for being the voice in my head. Anyway, that's it. I want you to spend some time thinking about the voice in your head and what does it mean? And how do you take ownership over that voice so that you can solve the problems that you're passionate about and that nothing gets in your way of doing that. Enjoy. If you buy the book, enjoy the book. I'm gonna have fun reading it this weekend. Oh my God, what kind of question is that?